Hi. So, I'm going to be working on this. It's a photo I took a few years back, actually, of the Schoharie Valley from Vroman's Nose. If you've ever been in upstate New York and or if you ever get there, you get a chance to go see Vroman's Nose. It's a nice walk up a hill and just an incredible view. And I've painted this more than once. And here's truth. My paintings often don't really look like, very much like what I'm painting. That's okay though. What it will look like is something. So I just dipped this brush, which is a pretty basic, cheap. I'm stressing cheap because I want you to know you can just start. You don't have to wait for the right stuff. You don't have to spend a huge amount of money. So I'm going to start by putting in a few lines on this thing that are relating to that photo that I showed you. And they won't be exact. I'm going to move this over just a little bit so it's a little more in the frame for you. That's a little bit better. And maybe even a little more so that shine isn't so bad. That's good. So as I was saying, we're going to start by just putting in some lines that will delineate various parts of this landscape, okay? So, a lot of sky. We're going to put a horizon line more or less, say 2/3 of the way down. Now for that horizon line, I'm going to take some black and some blue and some green. Make a really dark color. And I am looking at my photo while I do this. I've got a hill here, and that kind of goes into another hill here. And by the way, I'm not worried, I'm going to say it again, about being too accurate, because I already have a photo of this area. I don't need a photo. What I need is to have fun and do a painting. And when I'm all done with the painting, that tink 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 you hear is I just rinse this off in some water and in a pasta sauce jar there. And when I'm all done with this painting, I'll say, hey, there's a painting. I want to do another one. That's sort of what I hope happens to you. Mixing a slightly different dark color. I don't know why I'm bothering, because it'll never show. But I'm sketching in this other hill that's closer to us, the viewer, and putting in this sort of the bottom of the hill. This particular hill here, there's a creek that goes right around it, so it sort of abruptly ends. And then all this area is a floodplain. And if you're up on Vroman's Nose, you're looking down, there's a very sharp, steep drop. And so you get to really see it from above. It's a beautiful place. So there's a line, starts about here, goes along, and again, that's that floodplain. So you see what I'm doing? I'm sketching in. Here in my photo, I've got a bunch of vegetation in the foreground, so I'm sort of marking where that is. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to make it a little darker. Marking where that vegetation is in the corner. Good. Can you see it now? Yes, you can. And last but not least, but I'm definitely going to change my colors now, I'm going to sketch in, there's a field in the very foreground that I don't know what it's planted with, but when I took this picture, it was bright, almost bright yellow. So I'm going to go, everything in this layer is dark. I'm building up the light, but I'm going to try to create the line of that field in the foreground. Goes about here, and then it actually cheats up a little bit, and then it disappears into this vegetation. Right, and so I'm gonna should have used a wider brush for that. Let me try this one. Oh, got it. Oh, it got away from me anyway. Sometimes brushes don't want to be used. You have to be stern with them, because I want to use this brush and it's the right brush. How do I know? It's because the one I grabbed. You're trying to get away from me. Too bad, brush. I got you. You can tell how seriously I take all this. So that's just pure yellow ochre. And I'm just sketching in this front area. I'm not covering at all, really. I'm just sketching it in. By the way, canvas, you might have noticed, is brown. You buy a canvas at the store, it's white. What's up with that, Mike? Well, I forget who taught me this, but it's great to take a canvas and give it an undercoating of dark, and it could be an undercoating of brown like this, or black, or ultramarine, or all sorts of things. But it just it helps me see in a different way while I'm painting, as opposed to the white. Try it both ways. You'll see what I mean. Now, this field in the foreground, boy, do I love that. Bright, bright, beautiful green, and there are clouds rolling along overhead. So there's this modeling going on in this field. So I'm going to start to lay in some of that green. Some of it gets really, really light. So now I'm taking some of this green that I was just using. I'm taking some of my Hansa yellow and a little bit more of my yellow ochre, and I'm lightening it up, and I'm laying in different areas that are light and dark because of the shadows of the clouds. And it looks pretty abstract and pretty strong and powerful right now. Nothing wrong with a little power in your painting. Matter of fact, as a matter of fact, it's all about power. About your power to do something that you want to do, despite perhaps you have some idiotic voice in your head saying, oh, you're not talented, you can't do that, oh, you don't know how to draw, you don't know how to paint. That voice is from some idiot, perhaps a well-intentioned one, perhaps even somebody you loved as a child, who said, oh, you couldn't do that, what about that money I gave you? What money? Oh, the money for drawing lessons. That idiot, don't listen to that idiot. You can do whatever you want. Are you Michelangelo? No, neither am I. You can have a good time with some paints. So, as I'm making this video, a lot of the country, a lot of the world are in sort of a self-imposed quiet time at the end of the winter of 2020 because of this COVID virus. And that's why I'm making these videos. I figure that maybe there are some folks out there who might find the time to do something a little different with their life. And painting's a great way to go. Now, right along here is the bed of this creek. And in the summertime, it is not filled with water. It's got some water in it, but there's a lot of space. Because remember, this is all a flood plain. That means it's pretty flat. But the actual bed of the creek goes along the bottom of the hill. Boy, doesn't that look something. And this is what I mean by using that brown. It's actually not white that I'm laying in there. But You see where the bed of the creek curves around. It goes around the other side of this hill. And it just so happens that it's also up here, far away. A little bit of it, because, you know, that creek doubles back and forth. So right now, I've got some of the foreground kind of marked. And I've got the placement of where the hills are. And I got this great big blank sky. So I'm going to do a little bit more kind of marking on these hills. And that really super light area that I just did here, there's a pretty light, but not that light, a couple of areas up here on this hill, fields that are farther away. Here's a nice thing about a rectangular brush. See, I've gone in here, and then I get the corner, I don't know if you can see it, I get the corner of a field. That corner goes along. And then there's a stand of trees, interrupts it. And then there's another field over here. And I'm putting in really just blotches of paint. These will change as we go forward. But I'm marking where things are going to be. There's another field. All right, I'm going to surround that with some of the dark. Another way I could have done that is to paint this entire hill green and then add the lighter areas on it. That's a perfectly valid way to go too. I am not going to say, hey, here's the right way. The right way is the way you do it. The right way is the way that makes you feel good. It makes you feel like a happy human who's not hurting anybody, you're just making a picture. So, got some of that foreground hill sketched in. Right? And it's pretty ugly, this painting, but that's okay. Don't you worry about that. It's going to get uglier. I hope not. Hope it doesn't get uglier, but you never know. Some of this hill, ooh, that needs to go way darker. See, again, here, that looked really dark, but up here against this brown, looks really light. And then, of course, on the video, I don't know what it looks like. I'll find that out later. Now this hill, this area of hills back here, is the farthest away. So I'm going to clean this brush. I'm going to go up to this cerulean blue right here. And I'm going to take some of this green and dip into a little more of my white. And because the further things, well, I'll put it to you this way. For purple mountains majesty, watch them. When they're a distance away, they tend to go blue or purple on you. So again, that is nowhere near the color that I want that to be later on. But for now, it's the way it's going to be. There's a whole area here I haven't touched. That's very brightly lit in the sun. It's also got some of that sandy area. Like the creek bed. And I think what some of that sandy area is, you know, from a distance, is what it looks like, is sandy area. I think it's actually a field that maybe had hay and it's been cut, and it's that light brown, dried field look. By the way, this paper is cooking parchment. It's pretty tough. This is a plywood palette. The other side of it, I paint with oils. And the last time I used it, I didn't clean it off at the end of a painting, and so it's kind of like the surface of the moon. It's got a lot of mountains and stuff. And these are acrylics, different thing. I'm just trying to keep it clean, so I covered it that way. Anyway, this area is really brightly lit. So a lot of my foregrounds is marked right now. One of the reasons I'm a painter is that my father was a painter. And I grew up watching him paint. When I was a little boy, By the way, I'm in sort of the back room of my house in upstate New York. And he was in the back room of our house in a different part of upstate New York. And I think I had healthier habits than he did. He'd smoke Chesterfield cigarettes and drink Valentine beer and paint. I don't do the smoking or drinking, and I drink seltzer. Anyway, I paint because that's what I grew up with, and I sort of thought everybody did. I was shocked when I was a kid to find out that some people didn't. That's cerulean blue, that one in there. Now that's super light. I'm actually going to darken it a little bit. That's a little better. And I'm not worried right now because, again, this is not final by any stretch of the imagination. All right, I'm going to find other areas where there's kind of holes in the clouds and put some other, definitely up here. And again, there's more than one way to skin a cat. What I might do is cover this whole area with cerulean that blends down to almost white here at the horizon, and then add the clouds in over. But I'm just trying it a different way tonight. I don't know the right way to do it. I really don't know the right way to do it. You and I will find out if this is one of the right ways to do it. So I've got some Mars black here. I'm going to take just a dot of that. And some gray. And if the gray gets a little dirty with some of the other colors, that's all right. And this is going to be part of where the clouds are. It might look white on the video. It might. Again, I'm sketching in areas. I'm sketching in areas. What was I saying? So my father would paint. Got home from work, he'd change his clothes, open up a can of beer, light up a Chesterfield, put some classical music or Broadway show tunes on the mono hi-fi, old, and he'd go to town. Sometimes he'd paint until midnight or later because he really loved it. And I do too. Got some area there. I'm going to go back to some of the cerulean now. By the way, a lot of the time here, I'm changing brushes. You don't see me do it because that's kind of off camera. And I'm going back to another one of these rectangular brushes. Getting it wet with water. I have 2 containers of water, one to clean and then one to pick up the paint with. Going back in with a little more cerulean, blue and white combined. Lay in some more of these areas where there's sort of holes in the clouds. I'm going to shut up and just paint for a while, and I'll probably speed this part up. That's almost pure white. Tiny bit of cerulean. So I went almost to pure white down here at the top of these hills. And then I'm letting that sky darken as it goes up. Sometimes I'll look at a painting like this and I say, let's just, this one isn't there yet, but it might happen at any point. Where it's nowhere near finished, but I say, that's really nice. I'll leave it right like that. You might get that way too, with a painting. So what should you do? What's the right thing to do when you get that? Here's the right thing to do. Keep going or don't. I like to think of the brush sometimes kind of dancing. Dancing along. Don't get too crazy because I do want to keep some of these areas that are, there is a difference between the blue and the not blue. So I don't want to get too carried away. So you can see I'm not covering it perfectly, but I'm getting most of it covered. Sometimes I'm sort of scrubbing it in there. But obviously you can still see some of that brown poking through. However, I've got this painting at this point marked, I guess I'd say. And if you'll excuse me, I'm going to back up behind the camera and just take a look and see how it looks from a distance right now. So what I'm looking at is the composition of the painting. And I've been referring, while I did this, I've been referring to that photo that I showed you at the top of this, but that'll become less and less important as I keep going, because this is not a portrait that must be accurate. This is a painting. And some people would really insist on accuracy, but I don't insist on that. I'm taking some extremely dark green right now. I've got the sap green and some black. And that's going to be the basis for this area in the front. That vegetation that's in the foreground. And that vegetation, just for reference for you, is growing up on Roman's nose where I was standing when I took this photo. Another thing for you to know, I love to do what's called plein air, paint out there in nature, but I don't get the chance to do it very much. And right now it is this time when people are sort of staying home, doing this social distancing because of this virus that's around and so forth. And it's the end of winter. It'll be spring in just a few days. And man, I just need to paint some summer, you know, because enough of this winter stuff. And insult on top of injury, being cooped up inside. Oh my. Make it some more light green for this area. There's a process that you'll see happen now where what I like to say is that the painting is going to tell me how to lighten it up. Try it, you'll see what I mean. I'm not good at explaining these things technically, but I really believe in what I'm talking about. I'll tell you another thing that happens. Sometimes I get to a point with a painting where I say, I can't do any more. I don't know what to do. I'm going to break it. I'm going to mess it up. That, for me, is part of the thrill of this. I really might. I could destroy this thing. And if I do, oh, okay. The canvas cost me, it's a cheap canvas. I think it cost me $6. And if I didn't have this, I could be doing this on cardboard or masonite. I'll do a video on alternative surfaces and doing this cheap at some point. But now I've got everything pretty much covered, and I'm starting to go in sort of with a second layer. It's really all the first layer. Before I say goodnight, and that'll be the end of this part one of this particular video on painting this particular painting on this particular day. Hear that dog bark out there? That's my dog. It's late. Neighbors aren't going to like that. Gonna have to get them in. Dogs. Dogs are great. I don't know if you have a dog or not, but I think they keep you healthy. They provide you with comfort and friendliness and somebody to yell at. Exercise when you clean up their mess. They're just great. Gotta make that. place where this hill in the back is really not part of this hill in the foreground, so I'm cheating a little bit right now. But I really want it to be clear. Yeah. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to bump you. When I was in elementary school, there was a librarian in the school who was teaching us something, and she bumped into her portable blackboard and said, "Excuse me." And I got a case of the giggles that was fierce. They sent me to the principal's office because I couldn't stop laughing, because this poor woman said "excuse me" when she bumped into an inanimate object. I got to the principal's office and he said, "Okay, what are you here for, Burns?" Always called me by my last name, Burns. Going in greener now here. It needs to be greener. And I said, "Well, I told him the story." I don't remember her name. His name was Mr. Gold. He was a great guy. And he had a very gruff voice. And he was trying to tell me that I had been very rude to laugh at the librarian. He was also trying not to laugh himself. And I think we formed a friendship that day. Very nice one. So this is a very yellowy bright green down here. Up these hills, remember they're a little farther away, so I'm just going to lighten those up just a little bit, some base stuff, with a bluer, lighter green. So I'm coming in here, boom, got this green. Can you see that? Now, I got to remember to show you what I'm talking about, because I'm really doing this for you. I mean, I love to paint, but this particular painting is just it's a demonstration for you. Are you supposed to follow along like Bob Ross and paint this exact painting? Well, if you want, you can do that. I won't mind. Should you do something totally different that's absolutely yours, but I'm giving you ideas about how you might want to do it? That's awesome. Should you stop the video and paint exactly what I'm painting every step of the way? Sure. Any way you want to go about it is okay. Because you know what? If you start to get... By the way, you see where I'm just stealing some sky to bring it down into these hills? I'm not proud. You start to get paint on a canvas, you're going to start to learn, you're going to start to feel good. Here's the beginning. My father used to paint till midnight or after. Guess what? It's 11:20. I kind of do the same thing. Thanks, Bill. That was his name. He taught me some bad habits, but he also taught me how to paint. That was a great thing. That was a gift.